It's here. The not anticipated at all return of the guy that nobody watches. Thanks for all three of you for sticking around. I feel compelled to make a video about something, and hopefully more afterwards, because the airing of Dragon Ball Super on Toonami recently ended. And yes, I'm one of those scrubs that still like the dubbed over the subbed animes. I'll fight you. I don't give a fuck. But listen, I'm a lifelong Dragon Ball fan. Literally, as far back as I can remember, Dragon Ball has been my escape. It's been one of my many escapes. That and Pokemon are probably my top. So, to be in 2019 and was still getting new Dragon Ball episodes, that's, to somebody like me, something that's very... it's astounding. It's an experience. It really transports me back to when they were new when I was young. Were they new when I was... yeah, when I was new when I was young. So I'm committed. I've got all of the DVDs of the Dragon Ball Z series working on Dragon Ball. I have all the old uncanon movies as well as the new, yes, these. And yes, I did see Brawly before Super ended, so I wouldn't really say it was spoiled for me, because I would, you know, as a Dragon Ball fan, I knew that things would have ended up the way they did anyways. It was really the journey rather than the destination, and by the way, Brawly was amazing. It was amazing. So I'm not going to get into like excruciating detail of Super. I'm just going to touch on how I felt about it as a whole. I was glad to see the original cast back, by the way, I got all their autographs couple of years ago. I will always and forever be my cherished item here. It introduced to me things that Dragon Ball needed. All your typical tropes are there, don't get me wrong, but they're not as prevalent. They're less prevalent in Super. Like, I feel like they became a little bit more self-aware this time around, and they left them there, I feel like, for novelty's sake, but dwindled them down a bit so they weren't as excruciating. Don't get me wrong, I appreciated all the filler and all the tropes before, but I didn't really need them as much anymore. So it was almost like they were there for homage, and that was the extent of it. Other than that, the pacing for Super was, to me, a lot better than Dragon Ball Z. That's one thing that I think puts Super above Dragon Ball Z. Although I would say I liked Dragon Ball Z more than Super, just as a whole, because it had less problems. Not that Dragon Ball Super had a whole lot of problems, but we'll get into that in just now. Let me talk so far with my problems with Super. Let me start off with that. If you watched it, as you know, there was a pretty good chunk of the episodes where the animation was, like, I'm pretty sure drawn on, like, wide-ruled notebook paper and just thrown out there. They were trash. There were some episodes where the animation was trash. And it didn't necessarily take too much away from me, in terms of, like, enjoying the episodes, but it was just impossible to look past. It was really tough to look at. But I was there for the story during all of those. That is... I'm not going to say it knocks it down too many pegs, but the pegs, there are less pegs because of it. Other than that, story-wise, I loved it. And Dragon Ball Super did introduce one of my favorite arcs in all of Dragon Ball, which was the Goku Black arc. That, to me, introduced something that was very different for Dragon Ball. It was very much the Last Jedi of Dragon Ball franchise. It turned off a lot of people who had, you know, been Dragon Ball fans for a long time because they didn't really like it. They didn't want it. It was something that it was introduced that was new. They didn't like it. But I, on the other hand, absolutely loved the Goku Black arc. I just wish it wasn't marred with bad animation. But it's the first arc that I can really feel like that had like a tone that was a little bit outside the norm for Dragon Ball. Like, it was palpable. I remember there being some usage of music and some scenes and plot elements to me that that were palpable in the sense that, like, I even felt a bit uneasy. It had kind of like a mysterious vibe to it with the characters that were introduced for it and the way they interacted and went about things. I personally really appreciated it. That's just how I feel. And I've been on this train forever. I've been on the Dragon Ball Z train the Dragon Ball Super train since what was it, like 2016, 17? That was like 4 girlfriends ago, literally. So there's I have a lot of emotions attached with this ride, other than the ones in the show. But I absolutely loved that arc. And then we get to some of the other arc. That was probably my second favorite arc of it. I really liked the initial Frieza arc. I mean, even though we got all of that information already in the movies, for me personally, I didn't need those in the show. But I'm not upset that they're there. There's no reason to be upset with more Dragon Ball. So if you are upset that those arcs from the movies were placed in the show, I don't think you're watching it the right way, personally. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, that's just me, though. But then it all leads up to the arc that seems to be all anybody wants to talk about with the show, which is the Tournament of Power arc, which is very much that's very much a trope for Dragon Ball, the big tournament. Everybody got trained for the big tournament. But this 100% was probably the most important tournament that's ever been in Dragon Ball. So it had the most at stake, literally. Spoiler alert. Everything was at stake. Literally, everything was at stake. And there was small twists in there that threw things off just a little bit that I appreciated. But the animation stayed very consistent with the Tournament of Power arc. And it had some of my most favorite action sequences in the whole series. As much as I liked the Goku Black arc, this arc had... I like the Goku Black arc for its elements, in terms of just like animation, filmmaking, and those type elements. And I liked the characters, and I liked the plot details of the Goku Black arc. A lot of people found it confusing, it didn't make sense. I liked that it made people think, which is not something you really get in Dragon Ball a lot. So that is my favorite in its own right. But in terms of just fucking massive action, that's where the Tournament of Power shines massively. The details are there. It really felt like a movie quality one. Like Broly, it had that level of animation to me. And it had some of my most favorite action sequences, and absolutely blows the Cell Saga out of the water, which up until now was always my favorite saga in terms of action sequences. So if you're a Dragon Ball fan and you didn't necessarily want to follow all of Super, just start where the Tournament of Power begins and just watch that through. That in and of itself, to me, really ties Super together. I know it's not totally over yet. The mangas are still going, so we'll definitely get more anime. But those are my opinions on Dragon Ball Super, without getting into too much excruciating detail. Dragon Ball Z still wins my favorite on top, but Dragon Ball Super is just a notch below it, just for a few small things. It could still usurp Dragon Ball Z. There's still more to come. But up to this point, that's about where I stand on it. I don't know if you guys watched it. You probably clicked off as soon as you found out I liked dubbed over subbed, but that's just how I feel, and you're gonna have to deal with it. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope I can stay consistent with these uploads. This is probably something I've said about 1 million times. I could probably make a whole music album with as many times as I said that. A few other things. I've been contemplating streaming at twitch.tv/rwingaaron. I've got kind of mixed feelings on that, but if I can get some attention over there, I'll definitely do it. That would be cool. I also have a SoundCloud. A lot of you probably don't know that. rwingaaron on SoundCloud. Check some of that stuff out. I love making music, and I still make music frequently. Even in my absence from here, I've still been making music over there, as well as contemplating streaming. So if you want to do that, sweet. If I get enough attention, I'll definitely do a little bit of streaming. Until next time, I'll see you later.